Welcome back to the channel, returning fans, and a massive hello to all our new listeners. You are just in time for peak fantasy capitalism. Let us begin with episode 1 where Lloyd, Javier, and a squad of delightfully chubby creatures stand at the edge of his completely bankrupt territory. The wind howls, but Lloyd is not worried about the medieval fantasy aesthetic. He has a very different master plan brewing. This isn't your typical magical banner. It's the proud emblem of the Frontera estate. To everyone else, it's a symbol of a failing, impoverished territory. But to our resident civil engineering genius trapped inside a useless body, it's a golden opportunity. Look at that unearned confidence. Armed with nothing but a shovel, an attitude problem, and his extremely reluctant knight, Javier. Oh, and let's not forget these ridiculously adorable magical summons. Lloyd is ready to aggressively terraform this fantasy world into pure profit. These fluffy little guys are totally hyped. They have absolutely no idea what kind of grueling, unpaid manual labor their crazy new master has in store for them. Enjoy the sunshine while you can, little buddies. Welcome to the construction crew. Why cast spells when you can wield the ultimate weapon of modern capitalism? Lloyd warms up with a dramatic shovel twirl. He's about to show this primitive fantasy realm the true, terrifying magic of a licensed civil engineer on a deadline. With a massive, dramatic slam, the earth-shaking labor begins. Forget swinging a sword to slay dragons. Real men swing shovels to lay solid foundations. It's time to build some serious equity, avoid utter financial ruin, and maybe survive this entire novel. Instantly, a massive magical blueprint erupts from the soil. Javier watches in absolute shock as a glowing, high-tech grid expands across the grass. This isn't just standard magic. This is an advanced spatial survey system fueled by sheer, unfiltered greed. The energy surges, mapping out the entire undeveloped valley in seconds. Lloyd is literally scanning the terrain like a video game. He's calculating property values, structural integrity, and exactly how rich this massive patch of dirt is going to make him. But wait, what is that? Giant, glowing holographic structures start shooting up from the ground. He isn't planning a simple little village. He is envisioning a massive, modern metropolis right in the middle of a medieval fantasy countryside. Boom, a sprawling, glorious city grid appears before their eyes. High-rises, paved roads, and endless real estate potential. If this broke noble wants to survive this story, he's going to build his way to the top, one building at a time. Just look at the scale of this thing. Lloyd isn't just dreaming big, he is planning a complete hostile takeover of the local real estate market. Javier, meanwhile, is probably wondering if his lord has finally lost his mind. Honestly, you can't blame Javier for that incredulous stare. The stoic knight is staring at Lloyd like he's an absolute lunatic. To be fair, staring blankly into space while drooling over imaginary profit margins isn't very noble behavior. But Lloyd doesn't care. The sheer, unadulterated joy of future capitalism is coursing through his veins. He throws his head back and unleashes the most villainous, greed-fueled maniacal laugh this quiet little fantasy valley has ever witnessed. The manic echoing laughter really sets the tone for his entirely ridiculous reign. He is standing on a hill of dirt, armed with a shovel, declaring absolute financial dominance over a bunch of grass. It is pure comedy gold. But how exactly did a broke civil engineering student end up acting like a cartoon villain in a fantasy world? Let's rewind the clock a few years and see exactly how this ridiculous Isekai nightmare actually began. It all started with this incredibly sarcastic system notification. Oh, you've been chosen for a random wish by the Absolute. Congratulations! Clap, clap, clap. It sounds great until you realize this system is an absolute troll. Our guy literally wakes up face first in the dirt, drooling, completely bewildered. He stares at the glowing blue screen, realizing he has been shoved straight into the plot of a hardcore fantasy novel called Knight of Blood and Iron. And to add insult to injury, the system throws him a little digital confetti party. Good luck, you've got this, yeah. The forced, toxic positivity of this glowing blue rectangle is honestly the funniest part of his suffering. The sheer, existential dread finally hits him. Look at those eyes. He isn't the overpowered protagonist. He is just a terrible side character destined for a miserable death. The utter shock and horror on his face is priceless. He lies there, utterly defeated and spread eagle on the path like discarded trash. A majestic fantasy town sits quietly in the background, completely ignoring the broke, miserable extra having a major mental breakdown in the middle of the road. The cold finally forces him to sit up. He is shivering violently, wearing cheap clothes, and realizing how deeply screwed he actually is. Survival mode kicks in, but right now, he is just a pathetic, freezing mess. Just look at the pure terror on his face. The panic is setting in. He isn't a hero with magical powers. He is a sleep-deprived engineering student freezing to death in a random forest. This is a total nightmare. And then the system chimes in with another absolute joke. A red health alert pops up, cheerfully informing him that his jaw is dislocated from sleeping on the hard ground. It even adds a laugh in the text. That is the final straw. Lloyd violently whacks the glowing screen away in a fit of absolute rage. You cannot blame the guy for snapping. If my interface mocked me while I was freezing, I would punch it too. He desperately holds his aching jaw, trying to process this absurdity. He keeps asking himself if this is just a terrible dream. But the sharp pain and the freezing wind confirm that this miserable isekai reality is totally real. Just as he is questioning his entire existence, a sharp sound breaks the silence. He freezes, looking nervously over his shoulder. The last thing a weak, broke side character wants to meet in the dark is a stranger. Heavy, intimidating footsteps approach from behind. A tall, imposing figure steps into his view. Lloyd's eyes widen in sheer panic. Is this a bandit? A monster, or someone even worse about to end his story early? The camera pans down to reveal an elegant, high-quality sword resting at the stranger's hip. This is clearly not a random thug. Those are the polished boots and lethal weapon of an elite, highly trained warrior. The moonlight catches the stranger's silver hair as he steps closer. The dramatic lighting and intense aura scream one thing. This guy is way out of Lloyd's league, and he looks incredibly dangerous. Enter Javier Asrahan, the actual overpowered protagonist of this fantasy novel. He looks majestic, lethal, and very unhappy. Lloyd just realized he is staring right at the man destined to ruin his life. Things just got incredibly real. Looking at Javier, Lloyd realizes the horrific truth. He isn't the mighty hero of this fantasy world. Oh no, he's just the useless, broke side character. And standing right next to him is the actual main character, making him look completely pathetic by comparison. Javier, the ridiculously overpowered, impossibly handsome knight. Look at him, casually leaping through the air with a glowing magic sword. He's exactly the kind of perfect protagonist that makes a greedy, scheming guy like Lloyd absolutely sick to his stomach. Naturally, Lloyd handles the situation with his usual grace and dignity. Just kidding. He immediately loses his mind, screaming in pure, unadulterated panic. How is he supposed to survive in a world where guys like Javier can just casually bend reality? They stare at each other while Javier's standing there, looking like a majestic painting, while Lloyd screams his lungs out in the middle of a dirt field. The devastating reality finally hits him like a brick. He did not possess a hero. He is Lloyd Frontera, the absolutely useless, doomed aristocratic hooligan. Javier just stares back, completely unfazed by his master's ridiculous temper tantrum. He is probably wondering how someone so incredibly pathetic ended up in charge of an entire noble house. It takes a lot of patience to deal with this clown. But wait, is that a smirk? Javier, politely informing his completely panicked young master that he never actually called him a hooligan. However, those cold, judgmental eyes completely give him away. The absolute disrespect from this overpowered knight is incredibly thick and absolutely hilarious. Fast forward slightly, and our two unwilling companions have finally made it home. Welcome to the Frontera estate. It looks grand from the outside, but don't let the fancy stonework fool you. This family is drowning in massive, crippling debt. Inside, Javier is casually tending to the fireplace. He looks calm, collected, and completely out of place in this ridiculous situation. He's probably dreaming about returning to his actual plotline instead of babysitting a broke, terrified noble. Meanwhile, Lloyd is huddled in a blanket, absolutely traumatized. The contrast between the stoic knight and the shivering mess of a civil engineer is hilarious. Javier stands there, judging him silently, while Lloyd tries to process his terrible new reality. Javier throws a sharp, annoyed glare over his shoulder. The look says it all. He is entirely done with Lloyd's dramatic shivering. This is the face of a man who is legally obligated to protect an absolute idiot. Shivering in the biting cold, Lloyd stretches out across the freezing stone floor, close to tears as he mourns the absence of Andal, the beloved Korean underfloor heating system. Welcome to the medieval era, buddy, where modern comforts are a distant dream and hypothermia feels like a daily inconvenience. Say goodbye to luxury and hello to the common cold. Wrapped up like a giant, pathetic burrito, Lloyd sits on his bed. Javier prepares to leave for the night when Lloyd nervously asks the knight about their massive family debt. Javier stops dead in his tracks, looking back with extreme confusion at this incredibly bizarre, sudden question. As Javier opens the heavy wooden door to leave, he throws one last suspicious glance at his lord. He knows something is seriously wrong with Lloyd today, but he probably just assumes the freezing cold finally broke his brain. Left completely alone, the sheer exhaustion finally hits Lloyd. His ridiculous bravado drops, and he just looks incredibly tired. Dealing with a terrifying protagonist and realizing you are entirely broke will definitely take the energy right out of you. Out in the hallway, Javier shuts his eyes and exhales a long, weary sigh, replaying Lloyd's strange questions about being broke, brought up out of nowhere, quietly searching for hidden meaning behind every word. Back inside, Lloyd stares blankly at the closed door. The silence of the massive, empty room gives him far too much time to think. He is trapped in a failing estate with a knight who might secretly despise him. A grim realization washes over his shadowed face. He knows exactly what happens in this terrible story. This is not just a random magical adventure. He has been dropped straight into a ticking time bomb of massive debt and total destruction. A sudden flashback hits him. He remembers his past life in the modern world. Inside his microscopic boarding house room back in Korea, he read the tragic final chapters. The gullible baron and baroness fall prey to an evil conman, lose their entire fortune, and tragically choose to end their own lives. The dark flashback continues to play out. Following the devastating loss of his parents and family estate, the original Lloyd simply gives up entirely. He becomes a pathetic, miserable beggar, loudly demanding more cheap beer while wasting away in dirty taverns. And then comes his brutal, unceremonious end. After completely destroying his health with endless alcohol and absolute despair, the pathetic aristocrat violently vomits blood and dies in obscurity. Our hero realizes he is destined for a truly horrible, agonizing death. He violently springs up from his bed, completely consumed by rage and panic. He refuses to accept his miserable fate as a doomed background extra. If this fantasy world wants him dead, he will aggressively engineer his own survival. Oh look, the incredibly unhelpful system is back. A giant blue alarm flashes right in his face, reminding him about that absolutely ridiculous random wish from the absolute. As if he needed another reminder of how thoroughly cursed he is. The next day in the Frontera estate dawns in breathtaking splendor. Golden sunlight spills over the rolling hills, bathing the fields in a warm, honeyed glow. A gentle breeze ripples through the tall grass, and the sky stretches wide and impossibly blue. In the home of Lloyd Frontera, the household begins to stir at the promise of a wonderful day. Golden sunlight pours through the tall windows, spilling across the stone walls of the magnificent manor and warming its grand halls in a soft, radiant glow. Enter Marbella Frontera, Lloyd's elegant but highly stressed mother. She is standing next to a very serious Javier, probably expecting her useless son to cause even more trouble. The tension in the room is thicker than a solid brick wall. Lloyd walks stiffly toward his elegant mother, each step just a touch too deliberate, silently praying that news of last night's pub incident hasn't reached her ears. He does his best to appear perfectly natural, casual, relaxed, utterly innocent. Marbella fixes him with an expression that blends elegance and unmistakable concern. With composed grace, she gently confronts him about destroying the local pub, pleading with him to apologize to the owner. Lloyd scratches the back of his head and, with a resigned expression, agrees to clean up the mess left by his predecessor, dreading every tedious task ahead, but knowing there's no escaping it. The system cheerfully informs him that both Javier and his mother are utterly baffled by his ridiculous response. Their stunned expressions say it all, silently mocking him for agreeing to apologize so quickly. Later that day, Lloyd heads straight for the village, taking a seemingly casual stroll through the streets as he braces himself to get the awkward task of his apology over with. A hardworking villager is just minding his own business, loading up a massive cart of hay. He hears footsteps approaching and casually glances up. He has absolutely no idea that a walking disaster is heading straight toward him. The poor man completely freezes. A cold sweat instantly breaks out across his face. He looks like he just saw Lloyd himself striding straight toward him. Clearly, the Frontera heir has a seriously terrible reputation around here. Lloyd tries to look completely normal, strolling down the street with his terrifyingly handsome bodyguard, Javier. He knows the villagers see him as a local hooligan, but hopes for a peaceful afternoon anyway. The terrified villager practically dives behind his hay cart. He is desperately trying to become invisible, praying that the totally unhinged young lord does not notice him. The sheer panic in the air is both hilarious and deeply pathetic. Lloyd stares in confusion, while Javier looks unsurprised, no shock, given Lloyd's notorious hooligan reputation. It's finally dawning on him that he really is an absolute menace. Townspeople are literally sprinting in the opposite direction, frantically pressing themselves against walls just to avoid him. Lloyd is not walking through a village. He is parting a sea of completely terrified and traumatized villagers. A drop of nervous sweat rolls down Lloyd's face as he takes in the villagers' reactions, and out of the corner of his eye, he spots a child staring at him. A single, curious young boy bravely peeks his head out of a second-story wooden window, desperately trying to get a quick glimpse of the famously terrible young master terrorizing their peaceful streets. Once Lloyd is spotted, a frantic parent lunges forward and violently drags the child back inside. The mother panics and drags her child inside, terrified they might be spotted. The villagers fear what Lloyd might do. The heavy wooden shutters slam shut with a violent crash. That absolutely confirms it. The locals aren't just being distant, they're clearly terrified of Lloyd's reputation as a reckless hooligan. Right on cue, the completely unhelpful system chimes in with a massive blue alert. It cheerfully confirms that the villagers absolutely detest him. Thank you, magical interface, for stating the incredibly obvious. They continue their awkward walk through the empty streets. Javier moves ahead with effortless confidence, while Lloyd follows behind, clearly annoyed. The tension in the air is suffocating. Lloyd looks at Javier and asks why he's there, assuming he's his bodyguard. Javier bluntly replies he's actually protecting the villagers from Lloyd. That's when Lloyd realizes he's not seen as a noble, but as a local gangster. Realizing his reputation is absolute garbage, Lloyd decides he needs a rebrand. Not for honor, obviously, but just so people might actually feed him if he goes broke. It is purely a survival strategy based on the fear of future starvation. He starts fantasizing about the endgame. If he fixes the debt, he can live the dream, doing absolutely nothing. Look at him bathing in gold. This man doesn't want to be a hero. He wants to be a wealthy, lazy parasite forever. But wait, this is a fantasy world, so where is his cheat code? He asks the universe for a handout, and miraculously, the system responds. Finally, some overpowered skills to help him conquer the world, or so he thinks. And the skills are trash, absolute garbage, human scum, which makes people hate him automatically, and rowdy drunkard, which turns him into a jerk. The system isn't helping him, it is literally trolling him by quantifying just how terrible he is. Lloyd immediately starts acting weird, waving his arms around like a lunatic to test his new reality. Javier just stands there, confused by this sudden display of interpretive dance. It is hard to look dignified when your existence is defined by being scum. Annoyed, Lloyd suddenly turns and starts walking off, too irritated to pay attention to where he's going. He barely notices they've already reached the pub. Javier stops him with a dry remark, making it clear they're exactly where they're supposed to be. Javier points him toward the pub, reminding him about his promise to apologize. Lloyd tries to play it cool, but he is clearly panicking. He completely forgot about the apology tour because he was too busy checking out his useless status window. Javier decides to let it slide, probably because watching Lloyd squirm is exhausting. He sighs and tells him to go inside. Lloyd survives the glare, but now he has to face the music in the pub he apparently destroyed last night. Lloyd completely cracks under the silence. He starts stammering and sweating bullets, terrified that Javier might have figured him out. He's trying so hard to play it cool, but he looks about as innocent as a thief caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Javier sighs, clearly deciding that dealing with Lloyd's nonsense is above his pay grade today. He dismisses the suspicion with a wave of his hand and orders Lloyd inside. It seems the main character instincts are sharp, but his patience. Lloyd enters politely, saying, "Excuse me," which is already out of character. Javier trails behind, watching his master's back with deep suspicion. He knows the old Lloyd would have kicked the door down, so this politeness is actually more disturbing. Javier's inner monologue kicks in. He realizes Lloyd isn't just acting strange, he feels like a completely different person. The sharp instincts of a main character are tingling. He's onto Lloyd's secret identity crisis way faster than anyone expected. The inside of the pub looks like a hurricane hit it. Broken tables, shattered chairs, and general destruction everywhere. This isn't just a bar fight, this is a crime scene. Lloyd's rowdy drunkard skill clearly did some heavy lifting here. It gets worse. There are holes in the walls and smashed decorations. Lloyd surveys the damage, realizing just how much of a menace the original owner of this body was. No wonder everyone in this village is absolutely terrified of him. Lloyd decides to go all in. He bows aggressively, screaming for forgiveness. It is a desperate move to save face. Javier watches in shock, probably wondering if Lloyd hit his head or if this is some new, twisted form of mockery. The poor pub owner isn't relieved, he is petrified. The system warns that he has entered extreme high alert. He looks like he is about to have a heart attack because the local villain is suddenly shouting apologies at him. The owner literally begs Lloyd to stop being nice. It's too scary. Lloyd realizes his strategy is backfiring. Being polite is freaking people out more than being a jerk. His reputation is so bad that kindness is interpreted as a death threat. So Lloyd switches tactics. He tries to swagger and gives a half-hearted, rude apology. The system complains it's not genuine and Lloyd is frustrated. He can't win, be nice, terrifying, be rude, system error. It is a lose-lose situation. But miraculously, the rude apology works. The owner finally relaxes, saying he doesn't have to apologize. Apparently, acting like a dismissive jerk is the only language these people understand from him. Lloyd has successfully failed his way into forgiveness. Lloyd sits there, sweating and awkward. He realizes that reputation management is harder than civil engineering. The silence is deafening as he processes just how messed up this situation really is. The blue sky offers a brief moment of calm after that disastrous social interaction. But the peace won't last long, because Lloyd still has to walk home with his scary bodyguard and face his massive debt. Walking back, Lloyd complains that the owner didn't seem happy. Javier bluntly tells him, "That's to be expected. Just because you said sorry doesn't mean you fixed the trauma you caused, Lloyd." Javier explains the economics of the situation. The furniture cost hard-earned money. The owner won't be satisfied until he is compensated. Lloyd is getting a lesson in basic human decency and financial responsibility. Lloyd stresses out, compensating him when we have so much debt. He is annoyed that getting brownie points with the villagers costs actual money. His greed is fighting with his survival instinct. Javier piles on the guilt. The owner's mother is sick from the cold. Lloyd looks sideways, feeling the weight of the situation. It's a classic guilt trip, and it's actually working on our greedy protagonist. Lloyd remembers the pub was freezing inside. A single fireplace isn't enough. The gears in his engineer brain start turning. He stops thinking about money and starts thinking about thermodynamics. He looks at the ground. The elderly can't handle that cold unless they have ondal floors. Wait a minute. He is bringing Korean heating technology into a Western fantasy setting. His feet pause mid-step. The realization hits him like a truck. The solution to his debt, the cold, and his bad reputation has just landed right in front of him. Lloyd's face goes from annoyed to shocked. He has an idea, a brilliant, profitable civil engineering idea. This is the moment the greatest estate developer is truly born. A dim light bulb appears on screen. It's barely flickering, symbolizing the tiny spark of genius trying to ignite in Lloyd's brain. The idea is there, but it needs a little push to become a full-blown scheme. Suddenly, Lloyd's eyes widen. I've got it. The gears have locked into place. He isn't just a broke noble anymore. He is a man with a plan that involves construction, heat, and hopefully, a lot of profit. The light bulb explodes with electricity. It's not just an idea, it's a revelation. Lloyd has connected the dots between his modern knowledge and this fantasy world's problems. It is innovation time, baby. A dramatic close-up of Lloyd's eye. The realization is so intense it physically shocks him. He sees the future, and it is warm, comfortable, and most importantly, potentially lucrative. A light bulb went off in my head. The energy is crackling now. Lloyd is fully charged and ready to revolutionize this backward fantasy world with the power of Korean heating technology. We zoom into his mind palace. Lines and grids start forming. It's like he's entering a trance state where the only things that exist are blueprints and structural integrity. The engineer has awakened. The blueprint overlays reality. There are no Ondal floors here. He sees the invisible infrastructure. The solution isn't magic, it's piping. He's mentally tearing up the floorboards before he's even picked up a shovel. Lloyd realizes the advantage. The original Lloyd was a hooligan who just broke stuff. He could never dream of asterisk building stuff. This is the perfect cover. No one expects the local drunk to be an architectural genius. A ghostly image of his past self, Suho Kim, appears. But the real me can. The civil engineer from Korea is taking the wheel. It is time to show this fantasy world what a modern education can do. We get the backstory montage. He majored in civil engineering. He was a military engineer. He worked construction day and night. This isn't just some random guy. This is a highly qualified professional trapped in a loser's body. Lloyd clenches his fist in victory. This is it. I can settle the debts. He isn't doing this for charity. He is doing it to save his own skin. Greed and engineering are a powerful combination. He spins around and sprints back. Javier, to the pub. Javier trails behind, completely confused by this sudden burst of energy. And why is that? He asks, probably expecting more trouble. Lloyd shouts with a maniacal grin, to get my first order. He isn't apologizing anymore. He is closing a business deal. The hustle has officially begun. The greatest estate developer is open for business. Ding dong, your true journey has begun. RP system activated. The system acknowledges the tutorial is over. The real game starts now, and Lloyd is playing to win. Lloyd stares at the screen. The path to survival is paved with floor heating, but will it actually work? Subscribe and comment, Ondal, to see Lloyd's first construction project in the next episode. Thank you for watching the Shadow Arc Studio. If you enjoyed this episode 1, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Will our greedy civil engineer successfully build a heated floor and save his doomed family? Find out next time. Once again, please drop a comment below with your favorite funny moment. Remember to smash that like button and subscribe for more epic construction.